Termination for medical reasons means that you have to terminate your baby because something has been diagnosed that's either genetically wrong or they might have something like trisomy. I actually had never heard of termination for medical reasons before. I had known of only one couple that I thought it was called like abort because they found out their child had Down syndrome. But before this had happened to me, I had never heard it even mentioned. So this wasn't our first pregnancy. We had been pregnant once before, which we miscarried, but this was the first pregnancy that had gone for the longest. We were trying to keep things quite quiet because obviously we were a bit scared after our miscarriage. But I think when you get to something like your 12-week mark and you get past your NIPT test and they tell you that everything is fine and they tell you the gender, where we found out we were having a little boy, we really thought we were safe, as they said. So we did start telling people that we were pregnant. We just really had no idea that anything could go wrong. We were at our anatomy scan and for all we knew, everything was absolutely fine. We could see our little boy on the screen and he was wriggling around and it seemed like that everything was fine, but the scanner, I'm sorry, I don't know what you call them, the doctor she just kept looking like she couldn't find something or something wasn't quite right, and I was just in this bubble of bliss because I didn't really understand what was going on. But my husband started to clue on that something might be wrong because she kept trying to measure things and look for things. It was then she turned the screen off and she asked us to wait a little while in another room for the doctor to come, and that our baby's limbs looked like they weren't growing properly. We were sitting in this room for what felt like ages. It was horrible. And the doctor came in and sat with us and told us that he thought potentially our baby had Robert's syndrome. Obviously we couldn't tell at that point because all they could do was measure the limbs and see that most of them weren't there. He told us that we could do an amniotic fluid test, which we could test to see if the baby had Robert's syndrome or something was wrong. But there wasn't really a huge option there, because whether we did that to find out if something was wrong or we terminated now, the end result was always going to be we had to terminate our baby, because there was no way that our child could come into this world without any limbs. It's weird when you're told something like that. My husband and I we had a unanimous decision straight away that there was no way that we wanted to wait and get this test done, and that I would have to, have this baby for longer than I need to. That sounds horrible. But knowing that you're pregnant and knowing that you have to lose your child, I just wanted it to be over with as soon as possible. We didn't know how to tell people or tell our family, and there was part of us that felt almost like we wanted to keep it secret. It's so different from something like a miscarriage, which feels like it's not your fault, to something like a termination, which is a decision. Termination is so different from something like a miscarriage, because a miscarriage feels like it's really out of your control. It just happens. Whereas termination for medical reasons means you have to make a call, even though you really don't have a choice, because it's a choice that looks after yourself and it looks after your baby, because you can't bring a baby into the world that is either going to have health problems for the rest of their life, or they're going to be having a really, really horrible life, or in our case, wouldn't survive. I was really lucky that I'd already been part of an IVF support group online. So when I told the group what had happened, I got some private messages from women that had been through the same. It was interesting to see that not a lot of people felt very comfortable talking about it in that sort of forum, but they told me where I could go. There was actually a group, Termination for Medical Reasons group, which I had no idea about, that I joined, and it was incredible to be able to talk to other women that had not only been through something like I had, but either were going through it or had gotten through it. So I did get a lot of support there, which I'm so thankful for. It's been a lot of grief. It's been really, really hard to suddenly go from feeling pregnant to the baby not being there anymore, and your body doesn't change straight away. Your body feels like you're still pregnant. So that was really, really, in a physical sense, that was a really hard thing to go through. Then there was just lots of different stages of the grief. It was disbelief that it had happened. It was acknowledging that it had happened and really trying to work through that with my husband. I have been seeing a counsellor. I'm trying to talk about it as much as I can and really not trying to suppress and push down what happened. You need to do what is right for yourself and for your husband or your wife or your partner and your child, and to not feel ashamed or blame yourself that this was something that you did wrong or the universe is against you. It is just something horrible that happens, and it's not anybody's fault. And I would urge you to talk about it and not feel ashamed, and know that you did the right thing and that you will always be loved and supported by other people that have gone through it